Hey guys, Ken here from the Pop Culture Junkies. Wanted to hit you up with a quick video. We'll see how long it takes. I'm going to try to make it as quick as I can. I know in a couple forum groups, Facebook groups, discussion groups I've been in recently, the question always comes up, CGC versus CBCS. My typical response to people on this is, show me the numbers, right? If the numbers dictate which way I would choose, I haven't seen a reason yet why I would change the choice that I make. I want to talk to you guys about it though. Let's go through some of the math. Let's look at some of the examples, real-time examples, real-world examples that are current right now in the market, and discuss some of the reasons why you should really be careful with the information that you may or may not be getting from people. So first and foremost, I want to say that my personal bias is for what increases my investment. My personal bias isn't for CGC versus CBCS. I can't point to a CBCS. We'll get to that in a little bit. But if they were able to change my mind, or the market could change my mind, I would happily move a lot of my business that way. So I want to get that out of the way real quick for everyone that says, oh, you're just biased for CGC. I am not biased for CGC. I am biased for the return on my investment. We'll get to the numbers in a second, and it'll explain why I choose to go the way I do at this moment in time. The other bias I want to talk about is this idea that CBCS collectors are real collectors and the rest of us aren't, who don't use CBCS for whatever reason. That CBCS collectors don't sell their books because they're so much more real collectors than those of us who are buying CGC. That's just patently false. It really irritates me when people tell other people how to collect comic books. This video, for instance, I'm going to give you the information that I found. I'm happy to look at information from others that may change my mind for the reason that I'm putting books in the cases that I am. But whatever you want to do with your comics is up to you. You can spread them out with pins on the wall for all I care. They're your books. You paid for them. You do what you want to do. Don't insinuate that those of us who choose to do different aren't real collectors. Don't insinuate random made-up facts that CBCS collectors don't sell their books. No, you see less CBCS books on the market because they've graded less books. They are not the market leader in this industry. They grade far, far less books than CGC. They have a much smaller user base. They are the new kids coming in, right? That's what they are. CGC has been around much longer. They've got a much bigger presence, a much bigger brand name. It's fine, man. CBCS is newer. They're a smaller company. And to be frank, their leadership hasn't done a whole lot to grow their market. They had huge opportunities to capitalize and basically did nothing with it. While CGC's market times, their turnaround times were climbing and climbing and climbing, CBCS didn't take time to step in and really try to lure away any customers, right? Let's talk about the numbers with these books. The thing to remember is that books are an investment. Yes, it's your collection. Do what you want with it. For me, I invested in these books. If I'm going to get them graded, I do want the best investment I can put them in. Grading with one company or another right now, you are pretty much guaranteed to lose potential revenue or potential value in your book, meaning you're paying the same price, but not increasing the value of your book at the same rate. To me, that's a loss. I don't want to do that. Again, I want to talk to you, show you the numbers to show you why I believe this way. Your collection, do whatever you want. Please take this information and do with it what you will. For those of you who are data junkies like me, take it, drill down into it, research it. Let's talk about the numbers and what they mean to you. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm saying this is what drives my decision. This is the foundation for my choice in this argument. So data is king. Data is also crap. Data can be skewed to say a whole lot of things depending on who's manipulating it and the story they want to tell. Similar right now in pandemic times, if we talk about COVID infection rate versus COVID death rate, A lot of people use these two things. For me, I'm in healthcare, so this is something that kind of bothers me at times. Depending on the story the media wants to tell on these things and which media outlet, whether it's left, right, whatever story they want to tell, they'll pick and choose these points, whether they want to scare people more, and they're not very clear with them. And so the same thing can happen with any data set. Data is a tool. It can be manipulated to tell any story you want if you know how to manipulate it correctly. I will get to some of that in a moment. I'm going to bring over some of my data for you right now. So now that I've brought my data in, what I want to point out to you is there's a whole section of this data where I've taken different averages, different means. One of them is a average of the total overall money you would have lost with all of these books. And I could totally present it to you like, this is the average loss. That's not true. Really, the average loss is a combination of the averages lost, which would give you a truer average. But I've also put up the median as well. There wasn't a mode, just FYI, I would have done that for the data junkies too. But really, you want to be careful with the data and know what they're presenting to you and what they're saying. So really for me, I think what I want to do with you guys, we've talked a bit about the data. I want to talk about the market. The market's very volatile right now. And in researching a lot of these numbers, there were some of these books where I couldn't find a good match within a month or two. In the current market, when you start going more than a few months out, you're being a little disingenuous. So I do want to throw that caveat out there that if you look at some of these numbers and see a big gap in them, that's the reason why. It's not because I was picking and choosing. It's because maybe CBCS didn't sell a 9.8 the past 3 months, but CGC did. The market right now, in a 3-month window, I think all of us can say prices have gone up at rates historically unseen. And when you go to a bigger time frame like the past year, now you're getting into huge leaps from the start of COVID to now that books traditionally hadn't seen. And so it is a bit disingenuous when that gap starts getting larger. I tried to keep it as close as possible in these comparisons from what I could find. You'll also see grades that are different. I tried to go with the 9.8s because they're the easiest to correlate between the two. When you get into the realm of 6.0s, even 8.0s, there's a lot of defects in presentation that can dictate why a book sells the way it did just based on the presentation of the cover, right? And so when you get into those lower grades, things really start to get sketchy between the books and how they compare in sales, because presentation matters a whole lot more. When you're talking 9.8s, they are essentially replaceable between the two companies. And so you can count on that same level of quality overall between that 9.8. So I really tried to stay above the 9.0 for these comparisons. Last, but the other reason that the lower grades change things, it changes the market of who can afford the book. Take someone like me. I can afford a giant size X-Men up to 5 to 7.0 pretty easily if I just wanted to go grab one for whatever reason. The majority of people out there, myself included, aren't going to go grab a 9.8. The same is true of other books when you start changing grades, and so it changes the stability of the price range. It gets more volatile the lower you tend to go, and you'll see weird jumps between the two. You have a lot of stimulus check affordability in there that sometimes wasn't there. That's not me being a price snob. Buy the books you want to buy and the grades you can afford them. Again, I'm not out there buying that X-Men because when I say I can afford it, that includes maxing out multiple credit cards, etc. It's not because the money's just sitting in my wallet waiting. But it is something to take into account in the market. So I think the first book that I really want to talk about, let's talk about Amazing Spider-Man 361. I took the key list. This isn't my cherry picked list. I took this list from Go Collect today, posted on their website as the hottest books in these ages. So this isn't me cherry picking. This is Go Collect, third-party source that I went to and pulled these from. So Amazing Spider-Man 361, last sold CGC price $15.01, last sold CBCS price $8.50. That's almost 50%. To be fair, it's closer to 40. It's 43%. That's a huge lost chunk of value right there. Like, that's just starting, and this is going to continue through as we continue to look at prices. Uncanny X-Men 266, $9.99 last sold CGC. Last CBCS $6.97. Spawn number 1, Last sold CGC $295, last sold CBCS $155, a whopping 40% difference. This is value that you're losing. This is value in your book that you lost. That's important to me in my evaluation. It doesn't have to be in yours. You can entirely just like the title card on one or the other, and you can choose to go that way. It's your book, it's your money, do what you want. Amazing Spider-Man number 4. Last sold CGC $349. Last sold CBCS $465. The other 4 to 5 CBCS sold in the same range all were in that $300 to $350 range. I couldn't explain this outlier, but I didn't want to taint this, and so I left it. It is a 33% difference in favor of CBCS. Wolverine number 1. Last sold CGC $810, last sold CBCS $710. 12% difference. That's much better than what we've seen previously. Oblivion Song 1 was one of the other books they had listed. I have it slashed out and highlighted in red here because I couldn't find a CBCS sold. It's an obscure, more obscure image book. I mean, not totally obscure. Kirkman did it with Skybound, so it's not crazy hard to find or weird. But there wasn't one, so it's not really a fair comparison there. Amazing Spider-Man 300, I could only find this in the 9.4 between the two companies. This is what I'm talking about with that difference in that gap of time. So the last sold CGC, $1,415. Last sold CBCS, $999. 29% difference. New Mutants 87, last sold CGC, $750. Last sold CBCS, $623. 16% difference. Last sold X-Men 11 for a 9.8 only being $200 in CGC and $102 in CBCS, 49% difference. Batman Adventures 12, first appearance of Harley Quinn. I took mine out of the case, or I would have pointed to it just now. CGC last sold 9.8, $3,500. CBCS last sold 9.8, $1,550. 55% difference, over $1,000 lost value. NYX number 3, or NYX, I've never known how to say that properly for that book. First appearance of Laura Kinney, aka X23, aka the all new Wolverine. I could only find this in a 9.6 between the two recently. $850 for your CGC copy, $710 for your CBCS, 16% difference. And finally, Ultimate Fallout 4, first print. I did go with the first print, 9.8, and there wasn't a reason I went with the first print. It's just, it was what popped up first on whichever one I looked up first, so I stayed with that one. So first print CGC, $2,550, CBCS, $1,900. Again, 25% difference. So what you see here in these numbers is the total difference, $13,000 total on the CGC price were you to sell all these books that you have from CGC. $8,761 for CBCS, a whopping 34% difference. But that's not what you make on average in difference between the two. The average that you would actually make is closer to about 32, probably closer to 30. Again, something that people may not catch here, if you're not familiar with numbers, you may not have caught. This 255, even though I slashed through it and I pretended like it didn't exist, it does exist in these totals, which means it does exist when I compared the two. So if you look at that, to be honest, I just didn't take it out yet. Let's get curious and delete it and see what happens. Changes that total to about 33% overall you would have lost and 26% on average. Again, be careful with numbers because people will play with them and tell you what they want to tell you. I left that on there just so we could discuss it and I could show you that, because some people aren't good with numbers and statistics and percentages and they're not sure exactly how they could be manipulated. That's one way that they can be manipulated really easily by any other schmuck on YouTube like myself. So let's look at the Bronze Age. Eternals 1, 280 CGC, 260 CBCS, 7%. Moon Knight number 1, 900 CGC, 650 CBCS, 27%. Hulk 181, I could find these in a 9.6 recently with each other. 33,950 for CGC, 29,999 for CBCS, 40% loss on one of the biggest modern keys out there right now. I guess it's technically a bronze. Marvel Special Edition, number 15, 780 CGC, 580 CBCS, 25% difference. Giant Size X-Men number 1, 13199 CGC, 8988 CBCS. Secret Wars number 8, 1600 CGC, 1399 CBCS. Spider-Woman number 1. So these I had to find in different grades. I could not find them recently together to where they made sense. Again, didn't want to be disingenuous, but I do want to note that. I will say all the CGCs in these comparisons are all lower grades than the CBCS, and the numbers still come out in their favor. Spider-Woman number 1, CBCS 9.6 versus CGC 9.4. CGC is a 130 and 9.4. CBCS is 125, still 3% higher at a 0.2 grade loss. Savage She-Hulk number 1, 1199 CGC, 900 CBCS. Marvel Spotlight number 32. This was a CBCS 9.2 versus a CGC 9.0. 640 for CGC, 404 for CBCS. The last is Avengers Annual 10, 1750 CGC, 1130 CBCS. What you see there again, 34% of potential value lost. Just lost because you went with one company over the other, even if you got better grades in some cases. 24% average loss of value. So I just took the top 10 from 2 ages. We could do the silver and the golden age. I feel pretty confident the same story is going to play out. This for me is why I cannot recommend CBCS at the moment. Like, there's no reason to choose this company and just lose money on your book. Take a look at the numbers. When someone tells you a story, ask them to see the data, because it tells a pretty clear story of the difference between these two companies right now and the return on investment on your book. Again, that's only if that matters to you. If you don't care what your books are in and you prefer one or the other, either way, that's totally up to you. It's your book. Like I said, do what you want with it. I just wanted to put this out there for people to see the actual data, the actual numbers, multiple ages, multiple books. If you found something different, hit me up in the comments, let me know. I'm, again, not averse to admitting I'm wrong if you can find numbers that are different, and I would love to see it. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time.